So I will straightway go to the topic. Okay. So when you talk about the Indian Constitution, it is a very important document. We call it the fundamental law of the land, right? And we also try to look at fundamental rights, which are basically the fundamental law of the land, and similarities between fundamental rights and human rights. Which are enumerated in the international instruments, and basically there are two international instruments which ma'am have. Yeah, it is streamed or what? It is streamed. Okay, so I need to start it from the beginning. It is okay. So you see that in India, human rights has a historical root, and it is rooted in the very Indian belief, Indian faith, Indian philosophy. And when you talk about the Vedic civilization is a synthesis of different culture and different religion. So we have dharma sastras initially. So that is basically a Hindu way of law, and it is important to understand what is Hindu way of law. And let me tell you that here it should not lead to aberrances to another religions or even different ethnicity, people from different ethnicity. But here we talk about the Hindu way of law. That is basically way to look at. Execution of law, and that too from very way of Hindu. So we talk about dharma sastras, like dharma sastra is a commentaries of code of conduct, code of law in India. So dharma sastras maintain that there is a independence of judiciary in India, and executive is always separated from judiciary. So now we get to see that we have three organs of the government. We have executive organ, legislative organ, and judiciary organ, and we actually realize the independence of judiciary, and that to implement it in real sense. But here what we actually see that this is not something very new. So this is there since the codification of the first law, that Dharma Shastra, where it is mentioned that judiciary is independent from the executive, and kings as well as the citizens are subordinated to the law. So when we talk about the king is not above law, and that is somehow different from the Western way of legislatures or understanding the human rights, or you see the natural right. So we talk about divine origin theory in West, where we see that king is bestowed upon certain power, and which made him above all and above human being. So he is treated as a god, and his rule is also such that the violation of such rule will actually lead to punishment or even taking away of life. So you see that kind of belief system is not relatable to Indian tradition, because we do not believe in that divine origin of law or divine origin rights of the king. So we see that kings and the executive is subordinate. Executive, the very executive who is actually administering the country, is subordinate to the law. And the Dharma Shastra is also one commentaries who will not confer the status upon the king uh, uh, about how to carry out the conduct. But dharma shastras are there. Dharma shastras are basically codify the law and recognize the king that okay, he is eligible to rule. So in that way we see that the Hindu way of law has strictly maintained that independence of judiciary. We also have Ananta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka. We have Buddhism. In Buddhism, we also have non-violence in thoughts and the deeds. So these are rooted in the Indian tradition. Okay, you say actually that in Vinaya Pitaka, it is said that prince and private citizens are submitted before the law court. The same thing which I have said, that the citizens and kings are subordinated to law. And you see that Rig Veda, that is also another scriptures, have spoken about three civil rights: Tana, Sriddhi, and Jivasi. So when you talk about this Tana, here Tana means body. So it is about right over our body. Sriddhi is about shelter, so right over our dwelling. Uh, Houses, and also Jivasi means life, that a right to life. So that Rig Veda speaks of three very important rights, that civil rights. These are civil rights. You see, there are also distinctions between civil and political rights. You know, civil rights are there, which actually made our life easier, and also made to uh, give us a dignified entity. But when you talk about the political rights, it is much more relatable to political organizations. And also you talk about right to assembly, right to contest election, right to vote, right to petition. So there is a distinction between civil and political rights. So we talk about those three important civil rights mentioned, about which we found in the Rig Veda, that is Tana, Siddhi, that are Tana, Siddhi, and Jivasi. Those are the three very important rights. Then we talk about the Kautilya's Arthashastra, that is also another treatise. So in Kautilya's Arthashastra, we actually see that there is a mention about happiness of the subject lies in the happiness of the king. And Mahabharata also propagated that whenever there is an oppressive king, so there are also instances of revolt against the king. So you see that Vedic culture has already spoken about mass welfare, public welfare, and that is also much embedded in the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that we talk about universal brotherhood, and that is also enumerated in our foreign policy. So, and we embrace it. Our foreign policy embraced that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and the very nation India is known for that philosophy, embracing that philosophy. Right, and then we talk about some of the classification of human rights. So in this very slide, I'm going to discuss briefly about some generation of human rights. Okay, so we talk about human rights. You have a fair idea about human rights by now. So you see that these are certain claims, right? These are certain claims which we can have to live a dignified life, and these claims are actually inherent in the nature. And we also say that this might be moral claims. These claims are moral claims also, when you try to relate those claims with historical tradition, customs, etc. But when you talk about those claims, these claims are also available for all, in relation to all, in the sense that everybody can make those claims of human rights, irrespective of their status, irrespective of their ascriptive identities, they can make those claims. Now you see, human rights are different from the privileges. When you talk about the claims, claims are always different from privileges, because privileges are some of the entitlements. We may also say that these claims are also entitlements, but this will not make us superior from someone else. This will make us equal among all. Hence, we talk about those rights which are very, very important. These claims are very, very important. These are our entitlement to live a free life, to live a dignified life. Okay, so when we talk about those first generation of right, so we actually see in the first generation of right, this right actually contains civil and political rights. Okay, this right, as I have already told you, civil rights, these are the very important right to live a dignified life, right to life, right to liberty, right to privacy, right to own property, right to have free trial, and right against torture and inhuman and degrading act. Then you see right to form a family, freedom of expression. All these are civil and political rights, and there is also a distinction. We usually distinct civil rights and political rights differently, but civil rights are different from political rights. Okay, these are first generation of right, because those rights actually emanates during 17th and 18th century, during this Renaissance Reformation movement, when the the evolution of state usually occurred. The state was formed, state also evolved, right? State was evolved, state is a political organization, and earlier we only had a society. So there is also primitive society. From primitive society to different stages, state has evolved, and with the evolution of the state, we also make certain claim to have that dignified life, and rights are the product of those demands, those claims, you might say. So you see that first generation of rights are basically civil and political rights. Then we have some second generation of rights. Those rights originated during Russian Revolution 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution, and Paris Peace Conference 1919. You actually see that there are some milestones to define the human rights, to understand the evolution of human rights, and that evolution will help you to better understand and comprehend the human rights. So if you look into those milestones, like we have the first generation of human rights, we have second generation of human rights. In the first generation of human rights, situation were different. So there were also struggle for universal adult franchise. There was struggle for rights of the women, even to make themselves free from the solitary confinement. And in the second generation of human rights, we get to see the importance of the cultural and economic rights. And milestones are also set. You see the Bolshevik revolutions and the situation during the Tsar Nicholas, the kind of that inflations and shortage of food supplies, and also concentration of land, labor, capital, as well as entrepreneurship in the hands of the capitalists. That has actually led to a revolution by the proletariat caste against the bourgeois class, against the minority class, and lead to bloodshed also. So that lead to the realization of the importance of economic right, because you see that along with that autocratic Tsarism, famine, shortage of food supply, starvation also occurred, and lead to those second generation of rights. So it emphasizes on right to work, and apart from right to food, shelter, clothing, right to adequate standard of living, which is important, right to social security measures. So social security measures also become very important, as well as right to mental health is very important. That also came during that period of time. Right to mental health also came into being. It is related to right to physical health and mental health, equivalent to economic, and you see this cultural right. Then we have the third generation of the right. Okay, one more thing I actually forgot to tell you regarding this ILO, that is International Labour Organization. That is also another milestone which set up in 1990s. Okay, in 1919 we have International Labour Organization set up, and that that organization is based on the realization of the protection and promotion of labor rights. So basically it was set up to promote and protect the labor rights, promote their rights, their material development, their spiritual development. So when we talk about their rights, they also said that labor are not to be treated as a commodity, and they have every right to have that spiritual development, and irrespective of their ascriptive identity, they can also possess the property. So we have certain distinctions in the society also, right from the very beginning, and in each society we get to see some distinction on the basis of the occupations, and India is also not apart from that distinctions. In different societies, that distinction on the basis of occupations or holdings are being made. Now we are also trying and striving to equalize those distinctions. So we are at a place where we are trying to equalize those distinction based on the caste, distinction based on the class, that is also based on certain occupation, right? Occupational status. So that is a right to equality, and a very civil and political right. So right to equality, right to liberty, civil and political rights. We have third generation of right. Third generation of rights are known as collective rights or modern rights. These rights are basically right to self-determination, right to peace, and right to development. Very important right. You talk about right to self-determination. So you see that each and every community has the right to determine their political organizations and right to pursue their own socio-political and economic development. At the same time, right to development is very important right that every community can mobilize the resources for themselves and they can develop themselves. It is about communities trust on mobilization of the resources, and right to peace is also very important. Right to peace, it the realization of it happened after Second World War. First World War and Second World War, that actually lead to the you say loss of human life, life. You see, many military and civilians were died of starvation during the post-war period also. Apart from loss of life during the war, during post-war period also there was loss of life due to starvation, due to even poverty, due to diseases. So that horror of the war had made us feel that there has to have another generation of right, and we also stress upon the right to peace. Okay, so like that way we have classified this right. Moving on to next, we have some distinctive features of human rights and fundamental rights. So fundamental rights are the very law of the land. So constitution in the law of the land, and fundamental rights are inherent in the constitution. It is enshrined in the part 3 of the constitution, right? So yesterday you learned about human rights principle, right? Principles of human rights. So those principles are somewhat regarded as the very basic features of human rights. So you see that human rights are inherent in nature. You see, these are inherent in nature. So these are certain claim, as I have already told you, that human rights are certain claim, and then these are fundamental for its existence. So in the sense that nobody can take away these human rights at the same time. So these are claim, these are natural claim that you can make. These are inalienable in the sense that nobody can take away, and these cannot be abrogated at the same time. And also you say it cannot be transferred from you to another being. So you have your own set of right, another human being has own set of right, so your rights cannot be transferred to another one. So hence human rights are inalienable. Then also we said that universal is another character, another feature of human rights. So universal in the sense that the human rights are for all. This is not meant for one category of people. These are not privileges. So the rights are universal irrespective of caste, class, then race, ethnicity, place of residence, place of birth, etc., etc. Then we talk about the interrelatedness and indivisible nature of the human rights. So when we talk about the interrelatedness, you see that if one right is violated, it has an impact on the other right. So all rights are relatable. So that is very important feature of the human rights. So you are avail one set of rights, you are not being made to avail another set of rights. That means you see that violation of one set of right will also lead to violation of other set of right. So the rights are interrelated and they are indivisible in the sense that you cannot divide those rights. Then we have the salient features of fundamental rights. So if you look at the salient features of the fundamental rights, you see the very first feature will tell you that fundamental rights are integral part of Indian Constitution, right? Very integral part of Indian Constitution, and nobody can abrogate that right. Nobody can take away that right. And even if there is a provision of amendment, fundamental rights could be amended also. But you see, that amendment has to be by due process of the law, and amendment cannot alter the whole structure of the constitution. Okay, then you see that most rights are comprehensive and detailed. It is elaborated and illustrated detail, and we also have negative and positive variety of the rights. There are certain rights which are of negative order, which also put a restraint on the state to prohibit in order to create social harmony. And there are also certain types of right which are of positive variety in the sense that those rights will create condition among the citizens to live in harmony. Okay, so we have a negative and positive variety of rights. Then we have seen that all rights, all fundamental rights are justiciable in the sense that these rights are enforceable by the court of law. Then fundamental rights are restricted by nature, restricted in a sense that these rights are not absolute. Whenever there is an emergency, you see that rights can be suspended also. And you cannot even claim that your rights is above someone else's right. So you see that it is restricted by nature. Even there are some reasonable restriction imposed on a fundamental rights, reasonable restriction imposed on a freedom of speech. Limitation is there in your movement, although you are granted that freedom, you are given that freedom, but certain limitation, certain reasonable restriction is being imposed to realize that fundamental right, to even to avail that universal character of that right so that everybody can avail it. Okay, and suspension of the right usually happen during the emergency, and there are certain rights which are meant only for citizen, right? Article 15 we talk about equality before law, that is meant for citizen, and public employment, that everybody is supposed to get public employment irrespective of that caste, creed, that place of residence, are meant for citizen. Article 19 freedom of and no, sorry, these are for all, sorry, these are for all. We actually see article 15, 16, 19 and 29 are uh, um, these are for all, and there are certain rights which are only for citizens. And then we actually see fundamental rights are also amendable. Okay, as I've already told you, I'm not going to repeat it at all. So I'll come later to the citizen only right, because there are certain unenumerated right also which are there in the constitution apart from the fundamental rights. Those came by various legislations, but those rights are not enumerated in the constitution. So you also need to know about those very rights. Then we talk about uh, uh, the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. When we try to equate fundamental rights with the human rights, you actually see certain developments and historical trajectory. So it will see, I'll come back to these similarities and distinctions later on. So we will actually see the historical trajectory of rights in India. So there we will actually find that what leads to the demand of fundamental rights is very important. Okay, so we talk about the British rule, deplorable social condition, cruel nature of the country, and exploitation of tenants by the landlord. These are the conditions which led to the fundamental rights. First, you see this the British rule, the racial discriminations, and also we talk about humiliation of Indians, and the social deplorable condition of women, and also this people from the Harijan caste, like Siddhil caste. Harijan word is not to be used now. So Siddhil caste, we had also untouchable at that point of time. So all this actually lead to demand for fundamental rights, laid the foundation of fundamental rights, because you see that there are some milestone. We have found Swarajya bill that paved the way for constitution making, and then we also talk of Indian National Congress that demanded the declaration of fundamental right in constitutional framework. So you actually see that there were lack of civil and political rights during British period, and social conditions were deplorable, and nature of India is, you see that there are multiplicity of languages, multiplicity of religions, multiplicity of ethnicity, and cruel nature of the country also lead or result a different variety of rights. The demanded set the foundation for the demand for different variety of rights, and also exploitation of the tenants. You see that period of time. If you look into the impact of British rule and also the rise of nationalism in India, so you'll get to find that is one reason's exploitation of tenants by even the landlord that lead to this rise of nationalism, rise of movement. So everything actually lead to demand for fundamental rights. And Motilal Nehru Committee report is also very important because it has enumerated certain rights, not only enumerated importance of the rights, certain rights have been enumerated in the Motilal Nehru Committee report, like you see right to education, right to freedom of speech, right to hold arm, then right to equality, and right to have free trial. So like that, a certain set of rights were already mentioned in Motilal Nehru Committee right, and that has also set the foundation of fundamental rights in India. Then Karachi session of the Congress adopted a detailed program of fundamental rights and emphasized that fundamental rights to be included in the Government of India Act. And then Sapru Committee report, which is also important, that also emphasized upon the need for fundamental rights. Then moving on to the fundamental right itself, we have come to learn about those features and distinctive characteristics of human rights and fundamental rights. Now we will be looking into those fundamental rights. We see that these are guaranteed under Part 3 of the constitutions, and we see this constitute article is 14 to article 35. It's said actually article 12 to 35, somewhere it is mentioned article 12 to 35, or you see 14 to 32 basically. So you see that right to equality is the very first like fundamental right. There are 6 rights. We have right to equality from article 14 to 18, right to freedom article 19 to 22. Then we have right against exploitation mentioned in article 23, 24, right to freedom of religion, which is mentioned in article 25, 28. Cultural and educational right is mentioned in 29 and 30. Then also we say right to constitutional remedies are mentioned in article 32 and 35. So and another right to children education, child education, is a new human right which is included in the constitution by 86 second constitutional amendment act in 22. So it's important accordingly. Then we see right to equality, the very first set of right from 14 to 18. So what is equality is very important to understand, because it stems from the very understanding of the fact that we human beings are not equal. We are unequal, right? We are unequal in terms of our physical strength. We are unequal in terms of our intellectual capacity and strength. So there is inequality, and we are talking about equality. So we see what kind of equality we are talking about. We are actually talking about equality of conditions here. We are also talking about the equality of outcome. When you actually create an equality of condition, then only equality of outcome can be possible. So here we will look into the comprehensive definition of equality given by Brian Turner. So Brian Turner has given us a very well conceptualization of equality, and he mentioned about equality in terms of 4 characteristics, that all men are fundamentally equal in person, although we live in a unequal state, and inherently also we see we have unequal characteristics and traits, but we are fundamentally equal. All must have equal opportunities and equal conditions, and that will lead to equality of outcome. So here we also talk about positive and negative equality. So here in constitution also we have emphasized upon 2 very form of equality. One is equality before law, and another one is equal protection of law. So when you talk about this equality before law, that is basically negative concept, and equal protection of law, that is positive concept. When you talk about the equality before law, that is meant that everyone is supposed to be equal, and state should prohibit discrimination in terms of caste, class, creed, ethnicity, place of birth, place of residence. So here you see that state should prohibit discrimination. So as it is mentioned that state should prohibit discrimination, we see that it is negative in nature. and equality before law is negative in nature. Then you have equal protection of law. Equal protection of law is positive concept, means state should provide opportunities to public employment to all, irrespective of caste, creed, birth, and then place of residence, place of birth, etc., etc. So you see that a negative and positive concept could be also relatable, as we have already told you that rights are of negative variety and rights are of positive variety, and at the same time we also say that there are certain rights, like we see uh, that right to equality, it is also had that same, you say, variety, that positive and negative element. So we see that article 15 usually talks about the prohibition of discrimination. Article 16 refers to equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 17 emphasized upon abolition of untouchability. Article 18 emphasized upon abolition of titles. Okay, so here you see that abolition of untouchability is a negative right, and abolition of title is also, you see, this negative right. So absence of privilege is very important for prevalence of equality. So you see here I would also like to bring in the concept of liberty, because liberty and equality goes hand in hand. But at the same time we also see that many people said that liberty, excess of liberty, lead also lessening of equality. So where we give too much emphasis upon the liberty, equality cannot prevail. So in that case we could also see that there are some self-regarding action and other regarding action which are often mentioned by political scientists and expert. There are certain actions, self-regarding action, right? You see, right to expression, right to opinion, okay, right to religion, right to conscience are self-regarding action. Self-regarding actions can be restrained and regulated by self. There are also other regarding action over which state can take some action. State can, political organization or state or government can take some measures, take some actions. So here in terms of equality we also get to see that a state can create equal opportunity, take some measures, also adopt some legislations through which equal opportunity in matters of public employment could be availed. And also in relation to prohibition of discrimination, state could also go to adopt this positive discrimination if necessary to create that egalitarian state and create equality for all. And then abolition of untouchability, which is already been done, and it is by that enactment of Untouchability Prevention Act 1955, which was later renamed as Civil Rights Act 1955 only. And then we see that abolition of titles, there are certain decorations. You know about those decorations. In 1954, we had certain decoration and 4 kinds of decoration. Like we have that Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, Padma Shri. These are certain decorations. Whether those decorations should be there or not is a question now. So Acharya Kripalani has said that if you are making those decorations, you are actually availing certain privileges for certain section of the people, and hence it is to be abolished. Lot of debate and discussion have been happened, and that's why I have told you that there is a controversy over these decorations, and Government of India introduced those decorations. Those were also taken away during Janta government, which were restored by Indira Gandhi government again, said that there should be some titles, and these are of academic distinction and military distinctions, and these are special privileges. So you actually see that when there is a special privilege, there cannot be liberty for all. That was a kind of impression that when there is a special, like, privilege for certain section of the people, there cannot be liberty for all. But now you cannot relate to those titles and the decorations, because these titles are important, and some distinction are given to people of military, like, achievement, for military achievement, for academic achievement. Okay, and so now it is instituted, now it is availed. But there was a controversy regarding this also, regarding the privilege, matter of privilege. Then we have the right to freedom. Right to freedom is very important. You see, the freedom of speech and expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of resident and settlement, freedom of profession, occupation, trade and business. So initially we had 7 freedom, now we have 6 freedom. You see, 42nd Amendment has abolished right to acquire, hold and dispose of property. Okay, so we actually see right to freedom. It's very very important to understand the freedom. What do you understand the freedom? Freedom means absence of any restraint. That's how we understand absence of any restraint, even from the state. So it is also connected to the political system where you are inhabiting, where you are locating yourself. So the political system, the political organization has also something to do to avail those freedom. You see that certain claims are always there. We can take those claims by very nature. So freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So to what extent we can have a claim over that freedom of, like, speech and expression. So there are debates of different variety. You say on freedom of speech and expression. So right of praise, and also you talk about the hate speech. Now in online they define freedom of speech differently, even while they go to the extent of defining the hate speech. While to regulate the hate speech, to what extent you can regulate the hate speech, and if hate speech regulation will lead to harm, and even regulating the hate speech also be harmful to the society. Like you say that there is a debate of different variety over the hate speech, but hate speech is basically, it's defined as a torturous, harassing speech, torturous speech, derogatory speech, which offensive speech, and also unpopular point of view, which will meant to harass one community, targeted towards one community or one group of people or one individual, right? So when we discuss about freedom of speech and expression, the role of hate speech nowadays will come to play a role. And now you also see that United Nations General Assembly has expressed concern over the circulation of hate speech online, and 18 June has also been enumerated as the International Day for Countering the Hate Speech. So that is a step taken at international level to counter the hate speech, and also at our level, we as well as government can also promote inter-racial, inter-religion, intercultural dialogue to counter the hate speech. So freedom of speech and expression is very important, right? Freedom of press, which we'll be discussing later on in another lecture. We talk about freedom of assembly, very important, right? But you see that all this freedom is also subject to reasonable restrictions. So there are certain restrictions which are imposed on right to freedom. Okay, so we talk about freedom of assembly. So you can assemble at one point, and you can also take some collective action. So that is basically freedom of assembly, that your ability to form a collective, so this is also equivalent to freedom of association. Freedom of association, freedom of freedom to form any association, form any group, form an self-help group, any club, any NGOs, any organization. So you have all freedom to create an association, freedom to assemble anywhere, to resist against any action. This is also related to freedom of dissent. At the same time, freedom of movement across the country. This is a mobility related freedom. You can move across the country. And freedom to residence and settlement. So everywhere you can reside and settle wherever you want. But again, this is also subject to reasonable restriction. Then you say freedom to profess, occupation, trade and business. You can hold any trade, any business, any occupation in any places across the country. But you see, all the freedoms are subject to reasonable restriction. As I have already told you, that freedom of speech and expression is subject to reasonable restriction. There is self-regulation is followed by media. We talk about freedom of assembly. So you cannot assemble wherever you wish. So there are also certain other regarding action. As I have told you, that liberty can also be viewed from self-regarding action and can be viewed from other regarding action. So when we talk about the other regarding action, so you also need to see that your self-regarding action, what you can do, cannot hamper the other regarding action, the liberty of other human being. Okay, so reasonable restriction in terms of maintaining public order and social harmony. Freedom of association at the same time in terms of public order, harmony. So there are certain clauses on the basis of which reasonable restriction can be imposed upon freedom of right to freedom, and all set of right to freedom. And those clauses are defamation, contempt of court, then friendly relation of India with other countries. We also have the public order, not to incite violence and not to incite hatred, etc., etc. Then we actually see that freedom of residence and settlement and occupation, profession in terms of, you see, scheduled areas, 6 scheduled areas, 5 scheduled areas. So there are some restrictions which are also imposed upon the civilians to enter into those areas. So there is a restriction of movement into those areas also. Inner line permit is required. That is also based on the self-representation and self-governing right of the community. Now you see there are different varieties of rights, as we have already discussed. We have also third generation of rights, right? We have right to self-determination, that is a third generation of rights, collective right. So their collective rights should not be hampered, and hence government has also taken some actions to create a reasonable restriction on the freedom, on right to freedom and freedom of movement, freedom to settle, and also freedom of occupation and trade and the business. And you see this right to property has already been amended. Now it is no longer considered as a fundamental right. So we will be discussing about freedom of press and expression later on in another class. Then these are some media reports, and prior to discussing the media report, so we will also quickly move into those other section of the Indian Constitution. This Article 20 affords protection against arbitrary arrest and detention and punishment, and Article 21 provides that no person shall be deprived of life and personal liberty except according to the procedure established by the law. But that was been changed, that clause has been changed, said that right to life and liberty are inviolable under all circumstances, emergency and no emergency, and that statement was made by 44 Second Amendment. Then also you say that Supreme Court has declared that Indians have fundamental right to education at all levels, and that declaration came in 1992, and Article 22 guarantees protection against arrest and detention. So right to education, this is a very important right. So it is also related to our ability to make choice and take alternative decisions. It is also related to our empowerment. It is a vehicle to our empowerment. We make choice, we make a choice about our well-being. Okay, so it is very important, right? And then we talk about this protection against arrest and detention, which is also very important. A person who is being detained, he is to be informed about his detention, and within 24 hours he is to approach a magistrate. So that kind of provision is there in the Constitution. And then we talk about freedom against exploitation. So it is a very important right. At the same time, Article 23, 24 of the Indian Constitution prohibit traffic against the human being, beggar, and other similar kind of forced labor. Now, you usually see that when you talk about the forced labor, we also have a legislation that Forced Labor, Bonded Labor Abolition Act that came in 1976. So bonded labor were there in India, but also we had some historical trace that we can see that Megasthenes from Greek, when visited India and wrote Indica, that kings during that time banned the bonded labor system. So that was also written in some texts, and so that system was there, but steps were also taken to abolish that bonded labor. And this bonded labor is defined differently, in different region of India. It has got different names. Suppose in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, these are called Zetham. In even Madhya Pradesh, it is called I think Kavalis, and also Halims. in I think in Madras, then Bhagela. In Hyderabad, it is called Bhagela. So these are known by different names. In Bhagela, then in Bihar, it is known as Kamiyantis. I guess bonded laborers are known as Kamiyantis. So you see, bonded labor. This is also a kind of system where the debitor enter into a contract with the creditor and agree to render his service without payment just because he has taken some loan or economic gain over a period of time, and will render that service for specific or unspecific period, specified and unspecified period. So that labor, bonded labor, is a blot to the society at the same time, and government has taken some legislations to abolish the bonded labor, and also but many a time it is not strictly implemented, and we also have a certain problem related to this contract labor. Although we have act like Mine Act are there, when you talk about the instrument to prevent those inequalities and prevent the violation of human rights, the kind of action government has taken. Then you say that we have Mine Act, we have Factory Act, we have Ways Act, which are implemented. Okay, so there are also like a certain number of employees at times, they are not enroll their name in the payroll, so they are actually a contract labor, so their names are not answering in the payroll, and they did not get the fringe benefit. Okay, and they did not even avail the, they can't avail, sorry, they can't get the fringe benefit, and they can't avail the socio-economic benefit. And hence you also see that certain system are in place to provide them their right and promote their rights. Even there is a need for a strong vigilance committee which can protect their rights. And identification of bonded labor, then also contract labor, is very very important, and properly registering their name and timely and quickly updating their name is also very very important. Then we see that during British era, one law has been passed, Slavery Abolition Act, and that was passed in 1833 when India was a colony, British colony, and passing of that act had an influence over India also. It has an implication over India. We also had a system, this is called Girmiati system, through which Indians laborers were exported and taken to another country and to recruit in different jobs, and especially to African countries they were taken by the Britishers as a slave. So slave trade was there, and that was a norm at that point of time. So Slavery Abolition Act 1833 was a very important milestone also to avail the freedom against exploitations. But you see, there are some recorded global slavery index 23 says that around 50 million people were living in modern slavery now, and 1 in every 160 people in the world are living in slavery now. So that is also another concern for us. So it is not yet being eroded. So in terms of religion also, we get to see their concentration of the slave in the name of religion. Devdasis were also slave in the name of religion here in India. So slave trade is not very peculiar to this country. This it is concentrated in other, like, part of the world. So slave trade was there. So different country has adopted different law at a different period of time to abolish the slave. And we also see that regarding the child labor, so we will have a special session on child labor, so we'll get to learn about child labor. Child labor and child right prevention, Child Labor Prevention Act that also came into being 2006, juvenile delinquents, and that is also Prevention Act that also came in 2000. So there are numerous act and legislation that came in against the child labor, that also come against freedom, come in this spectrum of right, freedom against exploitation. You see that numerous uh, incidents when child are being engaged in factories, and especially they are engaged in glass factories, mine, and even carpet making in textile factories. And you get to see children with that shrunken cyst, and many a time their heads are also tonsured because they do have the scabies on the head and the skull. And they are also working in a very unhygienic and inhuman conditions. And most of the time you see that they are the one who are the earner for his family. So he needs to worry, and the children a child needs to worry about his dependent in the family. And he also fall between the 5 to 14. So you see, there are also bureaucrats. They usually come up with the reasons that engaging children with any kind of labor activity will also prevent crime. Okay, and also give them feed their stomach, in a way also prevent starvations. There is also one report that came up. So recent, like that the government amendment in the child right bill, so where we actually get to see that that a child could be engaged in the family enterprises. So that actually led to questions. So what do you mean by family enterprises? The business and the profession which is carried out by the family and the child. The child can also engage after his school hours. So whether it is based on the equality, or whether it can actually make the right to education for the child available, whether a child can play, can also avail recreation or not. So lot of issues actually came up by this very the amendment in the act. So I'll be discussing about it because we have certain media reports. Okay, then moving on to next, we also have right to religion. So right to religion enshrined in Article 25 to 28 and constitute Article 25 constitute equality for all the religions. So we have no state religion in India. So we are a secular um, uh, secular, democratic, socialist country. So we do not have any state religion. And we also see that Indian culture is highly composite. The way we get the reference of Bhakti movement, Sufi movement, Kabir, Guru Nanak are also testament of that composite culture. At the same time, we talk about the Akbar, his Din Ilahi, and also his Sulhi Kul, peace for all, peace with all, and Din Ilahi, that fate, equal fate for all. So you see that is also testament of our composite culture at the same time. So we do not have any state religion. So there is a freedom of conscience, freedom of profess, propagate and practice religion. And also we see that every religion, religious domination has given the freedom to manage their religious affairs in Article 26. Article 27 exempting funds appropriated towards promotion and maintenance of any particular religion from the payment of tax. And Article 28 prohibits religious instruction in any educational institution wholly maintained out of the state fund. But here also there is a condition that educational institution can be maintained by the state fund and religious instruction can be provided also. Uh, but the students, the disciple, pupils are not compelled to take that instruction. Okay, so that is another condition now which is being incorporated. And also you say right to have movable and immovable property in the name of religion, that is also enshrined in right to religion. So right to religion is important, and we also have some emphasis on right to religion in one lecture. So now I'm skipping it now. We have cultural and educational rights, which is very, very important. Article 29 and 30 of Indian Constitution actually deal with the cultural and educational right. So when we talk about this cultural and educational right, it is also important to look into the plural nature and multicultural nature of the country. So India is also a plural country, as I have already told you. like USA is a multicultural country. India is a plural country. Why we call plural? Because of the multiplicity of religion, multiplicity of caste, multiplicity of classes, languages, ethnicities, etc. So we see that this cultural and educational right has also provided state to work in certain way. It also capacitated state to work in certain way, to also give endorsement to different religion, give endorsement to different ethnicity, different languages. So we contemplate on the salad bowl concept here, a mosaic of all ethnicities, religions, and linguistic communities. So state is also contemplating on the salad bowl and giving endorsement to the diversity. And in order to giving endorsement to the diversity, you see, it is very important to understand what a Kemlika holder about rights, that there are three very important rights. One is that self-determination right, second one is polyethnic right, and third one is representational right. So these three very rights are very very essential in terms of cultural and educational rights. Basically those three very rights will also fall into this cultural and educational right. What those section of article said is that article 29 said that there should be protection to any section of citizens to conserve their distinct language, script, and culture. And article 29 2 prohibits the discrimination between citizens in state-funded educational institute on the grounds of any religion, race, caste, language, or any of them. Then you see article 30 provides minorities based on religion and language that shall have the right to establish educational institution of their choice. So you see that all three variety of conditions fall under the self determination right, polyethnic right, and self-representation right. So right to self-determination is very important. We have already told you that it is about your right to decide the political organization, right to pursue socio-economic political development. So right to pursue, a community's right, community's collective right to pursue socio-economic political development and also pursue political organization is known as self-determination right. Okay, then also we have polyethnic right, that ethnic community, certain rights are available to ethnic community. Okay, so apart from their decision to have their own government, suppose in six schedule areas, fifth schedule areas, there are autonomous regions, autonomous councils are there. So governor is the one who rule over those countries, fall under the sixth schedule tribal areas, basically those like fifth schedule areas. So governor usually take the decision, and there are autonomous regions, autonomous countries, they govern those areas. So that is a part of self-governance right. So they have their right to decide how they run the system. No, apart from that, right to run the system means everything. You see this right to run the employment, right to run like public institutions, about educational institution. So they do have right. So they will directly communicate to government. Governor has a rule over it, and autonomous regions, autonomous council will take all the decisions regarding their availing of those rights. And then we see that polyethnic right is one, that right will say that there are certain exemptions should be provided to certain communities in one country based on their very ascriptive identity, in the sense that you see Punjabis are exempted to wearing helmet. So that is a polyethnic right. So we cannot even impose them wearing helmet. Okay, so there are certain communities, they should be exempted even from slaughtering cows. Jews and Muslim communities should be exempted from slaughtering cows. So any kind of, so in the sense that they should have that right to slaughter the cows. They exempted from the repercussion of slaughtering cows. exempted from the revocation. So it is also based on their that cultural specific norms. And also you see, like the way we have prevailed upon the rights of wearing pug and exemption of wearing helmet for you see Sikh community. That is equivalent to polyethnic rights. Certain rights should be available based on their very ascriptive identity to understand their sentiment. Okay, this is important. And then we talk about the representational right. Representational right, which is important to get equal representation in the institution, in educational institution, in public employment, in even offices, in parliament, in political life, in social life. So it's very, very important, that representational right. And representational right could be availed through certain legislation like positive discrimination. We talk about affirmative action. We talk about positive discrimination. Reservation is also one kind of representational right. It is through which that representation is being availed. Talk about some affirmative action government is being taken, that is a free fooding, lodging are being availed to one section of the community based on caste, based on their ascriptive identity, is also a kind of representational right, which is very, very important to create an egalitarian society and also to maintain the multicultural nature of the state. So it's very, very important to maintain the multicultural nature of the state, because the very demand for rights emanates from the plural nature of India, as I have already discussed. So it's important to endorse the rights of different communities. It's very, very important. Now the one step has been taken, the Drupadi. Assami and Bengali become the Drupadi language. That is also to certain extent self, you see, that comes under the multicultural framework, and also cultural and educational right. Okay, and then we see that there are some other example I'd like to give you. In Europe, even in Australia, you said there is gradual Asianization. They have recognized that gradual Asianization. In Canada, the French-speaking people and English-speaking people are given equal status, and also along with the Inuit people. Maori is also an Aboriginal community. In New Zealand, they are also given equal status by view of those self-representational right, polyethnic right, and you see, as I have already told you, this is called the governance right. Okay, so it is important. Then, as I have already told you, some of the unenumerated fundamental rights, these are available to the citizen of India through judicial decisions, but these are not enumerated. These are not mentioned in the constitution, but these are available, right? You see that right to travel, right to privacy, right against solitary confinement, right to human dignity, right to free legal aid, right to speedy trial, right against handcuffing, right against delayed execution, right against custodial violence, right to shelter, right to freedom of press, right to know, right to compensation, right to release and rehabilitation of bonded labor, right of inmates of protection homes, right of not to be imprisoned for inability to fulfill a contractual obligation. So these are certain rights which are not enumerated in the fundamental law of the land, in the constitution, but by judicial decision these rights are being enshrined. And these rights are already mentioned in the Covenant of Civil and Political rights. And then the last we are actually end of this lecture. So at last we have right to constitutional remedy. So Article 32 empowers the Supreme Court to issue direction and a writ, about which Motilal Nehru report we get to find right to issue writ and right to get the writ, at least the habeas corpus, right to bring the body is very, very important. Certain writs are there which can be issued, and also you see that whenever rights are being suspended, we can move to court, so making the rights justiciable. As I have already told you that fundamental rights are justiciable, and we can also move to court whenever rights are being violated. Our rights are being violated. So, right to constitutional remedy, actually speaking about those orders and the writs in the nature of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto, and whichever be appropriate for the enforcement of any fundamental right. Now, habeas corpus means bring the body, so order a person to come to court. Mandamus is basically an order given to one public undertaking or any public organization to do his duty. Okay, to do his duty, suppose appointment letter is being sent but he is not being called, then person can also go to court to seek remedy of his right, then can also order, court can order to do his duty, do that public organization do this duty. Then prohibition is also one. Prohibition, in prohibition, quo warranto and certiorari are of same variety. It is also prohibit the court, Supreme Court can prohibit the High Court of any decisions which mm, um, any decision which is not in allegiance to the greater interest of the society. Basically, they prohibit certain decision of the lower court, and also we have this quo warranto, that is also given, you say, more power to even the High Court to extend their jurisdictions. And certiorari, that also that REIT has provided the right of the court to review the decision of the lower court. Okay, so like this way we have certain rights. I'm going to end my lecture today. So if you have any questions, so you can also come up with questions under query. And before this, what I'll do, I'll also show you some of the reports which will be important, and it will be also helpful from the media angle, because we have so far got the overview of human rights, but in terms of reporting it is also important to report. So if you read certain report, it's very important actually. You see, this is a report on freedom of expression. So all this report, if I click there, so perhaps so journalist body is placed to resist attack on freedom of media. So if you look at this report, so its cursor is not moving. Okay. Cursor is not moving. Huh? Okay. Why it is happening? I could actually see. Okay. I could see, but it is not being compatible with the screen. Why? Why couldn't I click it? Why doesn't it not appear? It's not in the internet is not connected or what? Huh? So can you on in? Can you on? Make it switch on. How much time it will take to make switch on? Huh? We need to. It is already connected. It is connected. It is connected to Campus Connect, but it is not showing. Those reports are not showing. I could see only in my laptop, but it is not shown in the screen. Okay, let it come. And no, I could see, but nothing is coming. Okay, one more thing. Okay. Meanwhile, you will also have tea. So you have tea. We will take a short break and then we will join. Will that be fine? Okay. And perhaps next class will be taken by Hanane ma'am, but definitely I'll be discussing about those media reports in my next class.
I think, ma'am, okay, it's showing sometimes it's not done here. Yes. So can you change the slide to give me this? Yeah, it's fine.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to join with you today in continuing and pursuing our lectures on human rights and media tracking. Well, so I think that we had very fruitful and very insightful, enlightening discussions yesterday about human rights and about media tracking and about all the conventions, the international treaties that have been signed in order to promote and defend and sensitize people to their rights. Today we are going to pursue our lectures. So the lecture of today is entitled Human Rights and International Instruments. We are going to see in details the articles of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. In addition to, we are going also to see and delve into the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant of Economic, Cultural rights. Good. So I think that we have been talking about the pillars and some very militant people who have struggled in order to set the human rights. And among them, so we have, I think we have seen before Mahatma Gandhi, we have seen before Nelson Mandela, and today I'm very glad, okay, to introduce to you Martin Luther King. So I think you know him very well. So he's also among those pillars and those milestones who have struggled in order to set and to promote, to defend human rights. According to Martin Luther King, now is the time, and this is what I am saying also, now is the time to rise up, and now is the time to be aware of our rights. So now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. So you see, this is an excerpt, an extract from Martin Luther King's very famous speech, I Have a Dream. And of course, you know that that speech was very influential, and of course, it had impacted the process of human rights. And in this excerpt, I have opted for this excerpt because I see that it is very significant and very similar, and it is fraught with symbolic dimensions. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy, and this is the thing that we were discussing. Yes, we have very important conventions, covenants, treaties. That's very nice, but we should render those treaties into our reality to aspire for a better world. So you see, to make justice a reality for all God's children, there is something here very important, is that we are all God's children, so we are all together, and we cannot, as even Martin Luther King says so, or said before, years and years ago, we cannot walk alone. We should walk, okay, together, in order to change our world for a better thing. So, and in order to set up, okay, justice, and to remove racial discrimination and racial injustice. So this is something very influential that we can, for example, get inspired by these persons. And I do believe that these persons and these militant, these civilian, okay, human rights people, so we can follow their track and their path in order to get inspired by them, because they have, or they had really influenced the process of history, especially the process of defending and protecting human rights. So this is something very important. So in order to just be in the same context and to shed light on these issues, so the objectives of this lecture will be as follows: distinguish between civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. So these are the things that we are going to see today. The second one is to explore the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, as the foundational international human rights document. So we are going to read and to get very familiar we are going to answer the question, what are the articles inside the declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we are going to explore it. We're going also to discuss the content of the international covenant on cultural or civil and political rights. Its scope, we're going to see its scope and its importance in protecting individual freedoms and participatory rights. We're going also to focus and explore the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So these are the basic documents that were, of course, published and dedicated to people all over the world by the United Nations in 1945, and later on, of course, the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. So these are, of course, the basic documents that we are going to explore today. So you have the UDHR and the ICCPR and the ICESCR. So these are the major covenants. We are going also later on to evaluate, because this is something which I do believe very important, to assess, evaluate, to criticize, think, rethink critically the role of internal treaties in promoting human rights, because those are maybe international human rights documents which are, of course, milestones in the history of human rights. But of course, we should evaluate them, and we should ask questions: to what extent we can rely on them to promote human rights, to what extent we can rely on them to track human rights violations all over the world. So these are questions that we are going to try and to attempt to answer at the end of this lecture. Well, so let's begin with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was, of course, launched in 1948. And I'm going today to introduce to you some very important key provisions and key concepts of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because this is a very similar, very awesome document. Well, So let's see some very important articles. So of course I have just summarized here, but if you consult the website of the United Nations, so you will see the details. So the first article in this United Nations, United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, is that you have the right to life, and this is something which is very important. But of course, before launching this of course document, so the General Assembly in the United States proclaims that this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by of course they shall strive by teaching and educating, okay, to promote, or education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of the member of the states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. So you see, in Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. What does it mean? It means that they are endowed with reason and consciousness, and they should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So of course this is just a summary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but of course when you go and when you read it in detail, so you will see that each article is very explored and is very explained, okay, like Article 2, for example. And the order is very important, the number of articles is very important, because I have just opted for some articles. We cannot, of the constraint of time, we cannot deal with all articles in details, but anyway I have focused on the most important of course rights. And you should pay attention to something, that all these rights that derive from something which is very important, which is right to dignity. Okay, human beings, so they are innately, okay, enjoying the right to dignity. They are dignified persons, so therefore they are, of course, they must enjoy all these rights to affirm and to confirm their dignity. So this is the first thing that is even mentioned in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So you see, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms. This is also set in the declaration, without any distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, for example, religion, political opinion, or any other religious opinion, belief, national, social origin, property. Either you are rich or poor, you should enjoy your right. Birth, for example, or any other social, economic, cultural status. So you enjoy your rights. Furthermore, also, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political or international status of the country. It means that these, I have already explained, that these rights, they are indivisible and they are inalienable. What does it mean? It means that we cannot, for example, select or be selective when it comes to international affairs, for example, not that this country will, for example, benefit from those rights and that country will not. No. So regardless of your country, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your sex or color or any other social, cultural, political status, so you enjoy these rights. So whether you are independent or dependent, so you should enjoy your rights. So Article number 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of a person. And this is something very important. The security also, it includes the health security. Okay, so this is, maybe it's general here. And there is something which is very important, and this is just according, this is what I would like to share with you. This is according to my reading of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because sometimes we read it but we should reflect on it. And this is the thing that students, for example, should learn, is to think things and rethink things critically. So maybe the first right, as I have maybe mentioned beforehand, maybe yesterday in my keynote speech, is that maybe the first right that you didn't attend, and even all the people didn't attend, beside the right to life, okay, which of course was which we got in the womb of our mother's belly. But after this right to life, there is a right which is very important. It's the right to have a proper name, and not any proper name, a very good name. And this right, we didn't attend it, unfortunately speaking, but we have, and it isn't even mentioned. You see, when you read, so sometimes even you read critically, even it isn't mentioned in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this is something very important, that people should have even very good and very relevant, very suitable, okay, proper names. Okay, so you should have a very good name, and this is also your rights. Okay, when you are born, so this is the first thing you get, is a proper name. And okay, just this is between brackets, some people when they grow up, so maybe sometimes they don't like their names and they change it. Okay, they have even the right to change it later on, or they have like a double, they add like a double name. Okay, so I think you know these things. Even in Asia, okay, you have maybe three names and two names sometimes. Yes, okay. So this is just between brackets to illustrate the thing that we are doing. Well, so mhm. Okay, so to move to the other slide. Okay, so number 4. So you have, no one shall be held. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. So this is Article 4 from the Declaration. So this is something which is very important. So of course, this article prohibits, okay, 100% slavery or being slave, either metaphorically or even directly, okay, explicitly or implicitly. So slavery is totally prohibited. So no one shall be held in slavery at all. Why? Because we have before these articles. So if you remember article number 3, so what do we have? The right to, yes, in article 3, it's the right to liberty. Exactly. So we have the right to liberty. This is the third, maybe in the third article. So in article 4, so of course slavery is prohibited, because we enjoy the right to liberty, so we are free, so we enjoy the right to freedom. Good. So article number 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. And this is also something which is very important. Sometimes even capital punishment is not allowed nowadays in many countries, except in maybe in severe, okay, situations. Okay, but it's not most countries. Okay, they agreed upon this article, and they started, of course, to prohibit capital punishment. So you see, so people, they should enjoy their life in peace, prosperity, and resilience, okay, without any torture, without any inhuman or degrading treatment. Article number 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere. So you should be recognized everywhere, wherever you are, wherever you go, wherever you travel. You are recognized in the first instance as a human being, regardless of your nationality, regardless where you come from. Okay, so this is the first thing that you enjoy when you cross the borders of your own country. When you cross the borders of your own country, so the first right you enjoy, in addition to all the other rights, like the right to travel, so you are recognized wherever you are, and whatever your nationality is. So you are very recognized, first of all, as a human being, okay, regardless of your nationality. um, yes, so and at the same time you are recognized as a person before the law. Okay, so of course I have explained beforehand that people or persons all over the world, so they have their rights. This is something very important, but at the same time they have their duties, so they should of course perform their duties toward their families, toward their countries, and toward their communities and their nations, either in small families or in big families like our societies and communities. So we do enjoy some rights, but we do enjoy also we should perform our duties. Well, so okay, I think there is like okay, I have focused here on um, Article 19 and 23 and Article 18. And this is done for a purpose because we don't have time to just read all the articles, but later on, so you can dig into this declaration. So Article number 19, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. Please, you underline this right because we are going to highlight it while dealing with the lecture of mass media and development journalism, and this is something very important. So you have the freedom to express your views, your opinions, to express yourself, either in articles, in poetry, in drama. So you choose the genre that you would like. Okay, so you have the whole freedom, okay, to express your opinions, or even this is also related to the freedom of press, okay, to the freedom of journalists also. So we underline these rights because we are going to delve into it later on. Good. Article number 18. So or 23, so no problem of the order, but just you see the focus of the articles. Everyone has the right to education, and as I said yesterday, so education is one of the most powerful tools. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you are, and the better you just you the better you get your place in society and within even your communities. And this is something very important. Education is very important because you are when you are endowed with education and knowledge, so this will facilitate the task in your life, okay, not just in your academia, but in all in every in your daily lives and in your academic career, for example. So it will be very very easy. So everyone has the right to education, and you see for elementary education this is obligatory and compulsory. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages, but in elementary education shall become compulsory and mandatory. So education, this is something very important. So, and this is a very important right, because if you don't get education, how can you know your rights in the first instance? How can you know so many things all over the world? And how can you get enlightened? Because education, it means enlightenment. So you cannot have a free mindset without education. You cannot criticize without education. You cannot be endowed with critical thinking without education. So this is something very important, and this is even stated in this declaration. Well, article number 18, everyone has the right to freedom, and this is something very important. Freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. This right includes freedom to change religion or belief, not just his. This his, so I underline it because his or her. Okay. So anyway, maybe this is the standard way to write things. Um, so the right to freedom of thought. So you think as you like, but sometimes within the norms and values and the standard of your country. So but you have that freedom of thought, of conscience, also freedom of religion. So you choose the religion that you feel very comfortable with, and at the same time you have even the freedom to change your religion, maybe if you are not satisfied with the one you are believing in now, maybe. Okay, so these are the articles, the most important indeed articles that are mentioned in the declaration. So Okay, so we are going to move to the other. Let's see. Can you help me, sir? Yes, okay, it's fine. So we are going to move now to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So as I have said, this covenant or the declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of course, this declaration has generated many covenants and many international treaties. Why? Because as I have said before, this declaration hasn't the hasn't the legal enforcement. So therefore, in order to assert it and in order to make it very easy and very understandable for all countries all over the world, so the United Nations, of course, and the members of the United Nations, so they have agreed upon launching such international covenants in order to decide on, okay, and to decide on the civil and political rights, to clarify for more clarifications, okay, to clarify the rights, especially talking about civil and political rights, because as I have said before, when we read, for example, the declaration in general, it's too huge and too large, and it organizes human rights generally speaking, okay. But if you would like to know maybe the very particularities about your rights, the specificities of your rights, so of course there are many international covenants, many international treaties, many regional and regional conventions that have this purpose of just clarifying the rights. Like for example, the international covenant, of course, it clarifies the civil and political rights. Just there is a problem here. Please, I need some help to move. I don't know where is it. It's here. Sorry.
We need to duplicate the page.
Duplicate.
Do you duplicate?
But it's already here, but I don't know, it isn't visible. It's here.
This.
Jeg super jeg ikke
Can you reduce this a little? I think there are many. Yes, I think now. I hope this one. What's the problem?
And there are multiple windows actually.
Are you recording now? You should stop recording. Or you will cut later on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Fortunately, don't record this, but it will be on live streaming, yes? I think it's fine. Yes, I think yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, sorry for interruption. Well, so we were talking about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So this International Covenant, it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in the 1966, and it was entered into force, legally speaking, in 1976. So you see, in 1966 it was just the launch, the emergence, but in 1976 it entered into force. Legally binding treaty aimed at ensuring individual freedoms and participatory rights. So this international covenant, this is a very important, of course, covenant, because it, as I have said, it clarifies, it makes it very tangible our civil and political rights. So we are going to see in some details, okay, what are the most important articles that we should know in this international covenant on civil and political rights. So the right to life. So this is in Article 6, protection against arbitrary deprivation of life. So you see, in comparison with the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, a little bit when you dig into this international covenant, you see that yes, there is the right to life, but at the same time, there is an explanation besides. So there is more explanation in this covenant. What does it mean, right to life? At the same time, you have the right to life, but at the same time, you are protected against any arbitrary, for example, deprivation of life. So you see, it is more explained and more clarified. And when you read it, for example, it is very, you just know that all the rights are very tangible. Why they have done this? In order to just remove any misinterpretation of rights, okay, in order not to be sometimes when you read the rights, maybe you will misinterpret them, for example, or misrepresent them. So in order to avoid any misrepresentation or misinterpretations of those rights, so sometimes especially in this international covenant, so you find the right plus, of course, explanation. You see here also freedom from torture. So we have talked about freedom of torture, but again there is another explanation in Article 7 in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights: prohibition of torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. So you see, freedom from torture, but there is more explanation of this right. There is also the right to fair trial. And this is something also very important. It ensures fairness in legal proceedings and equality before the law. You see, we have already maybe talked about it, but it wasn't not that clear in the United Declarations of Human Rights. But in this international covenant, it is very clear that we have the right, okay, to enjoy fairness in legal proceedings and equality before the law, regardless of your color, your nationality, your sex, for example, your race, your ethnic group. So we are all one, okay, before the law. When it comes to the law, so we should be one, okay. We should enjoy equality before the law. So this is Article 14. Article 19, again, freedom of expression. It is again very explained here and very tangible, guarantees freedom of speech and expressions. So you see, each time there is a covenant or there is an international treaty, for example, or convention, they affirm and they confirm the rights. It's like sometimes you will feel that these rights are repetitive, but they repeat them in order to assert them, in order to affirm them, and in order to avoid any misinterpretation of those rights. Then right to privacy, and this is something very important in Article 17, protection from arbitrary interference in personal matters. And this is something very important even nowadays, for example, because we have this development, this very rapid and fast development in technology, in social media. Sometimes people can get into your account, for example. They can even publish your personal information and so on and so forth. And this right is very important, especially nowadays in this technological era. Well, so these are just grosso modo the major articles that are mentioned in the International Covenant on civil and political rights. Now there is the second very important international covenant, which is about, and this is it guarantees economic, social, and cultural rights. And this covenant, of course, it was adopted in 1966, and it came into force in 1976 alongside, okay, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and it focuses on securing social well-being and economic stability for individuals, economic stability, social stability, and cultural stability for every person and for all individuals wherever they are. So, and these rights, they are very important. This covenant, it's very important. It is very seminal. Why? Because it's, again, it explains and it sheds more light on economic, social, and cultural rights. We're going to see some of those rights that are mentioned in this international covenant. So you see, it's the right to work. This is in Article 6. Please pay attention because the number of articles is very important. It's the right to earn a livelihood in fair conditions. This is something very important. So you have the right to work, the right to earn a salary, a wage salary, and the right to just enjoy a well-being, to enjoy a welfare life. So this is rights in Article number 6. A right to social security in Article number 9, it ensures financial and social protection. So, as you see, this covenant clarifies to what extent we enjoy or we should enjoy our financial and social stability. Because if you are not stable, financially speaking, and culturally speaking, socially, politically speaking, so you cannot give anything to your society, and you cannot even take. Okay, so stability. This is something very important in life. Protection of the family. This is Article number 10. So you enjoy the right to protection of the family, protects the welfare of family units and children. This is also something very important. When we talk about the protection of the family, we talk about it in its inclusive, okay, way. The family, it means the father, the mother, and kids, okay, and children. Right to health, right to health, and in Article 12, right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. And of course, when you enjoy right to health security is something very important, especially today, with diseases and like the era that we all lived before coronavirus pandemic era. So we have noticed to what extent this health security is very important nowadays. So this right to health, of course, will endow people with the psychological, physical, and mental stability. We have talked about financial stability, cultural stability, social stability. This is all these things. They are very important in society. But believe me, you cannot enjoy and you cannot feel even your financial stability if you are not healthy. So health security, this is something crucial in life, and you cannot enjoy anything in life if you are not a healthy person, and if you don't have this right to health security. So health security, this is something very important in this era. Well, so right to education again. So all the time we talk about the most powerful tool in our societies and in the whole world is education. So this right, again, you see, even in the United Nations Declaration, we have this all the time, this right to education. Why? Because it is very important. Even in the International Covenant, civil and political rights, we have the right to education, because you cannot do anything without this right. It's crucial. It guarantees access to education, promoting equal opportunities, even at the university, at the faculties, for example, in primary, secondary schools. So you should be very, very equal, and you should have equal opportunities to get access to education. So those rights, they are very, very, very important. So, of course, what we should know here is that these covenants, for example, so they complement. Sorry. So you see here this international covenant on civil political rights. It is intertwined with the international covenant on economic, social, and cultural rights. We cannot separate them. We talked about indivisibility, interdependency. So those covenants, so they are interdependent and they are intertwined. We cannot separate one from the other, and they belong. All of them they belong to the international, to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why? Because both of them they acknowledge that full human dignity, and of course this full human dignity, in order to achieve it, of course we should enjoy both civil, political, and economic social rights. So this is something very, very important. If, for example, the ICCPR deals with immediate obligations and focuses on protecting freedoms and participatory rights, so the other, for example, covenant like the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights, so it emphasizes progressive realization of the rights tied to economic, social, and cultural conditions. So those covenants, so they are very, very important, and they are very interdependent. So this is something very, very important to know, that this, for example, covenant complements the other. So they are complementary, and they are interdependent and intertwined. Good. So I think that, just to conclude, so I think that we have been acquainted to the most important articles in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and what has been generated from that declaration. Those two very important, very basic covenants. Okay, that again confirms. Okay, or that confirm to us and assert to us fundamental human rights. So, in order to just maybe, if you would like to get deeper into these issues, so these are the references from which I have taken, or I have based my lectures. So you can go to these websites in order to dig into the issue of human rights, and to just maybe get familiar with our fundamental human rights. So before ending, I would like you to watch a video about human rights, how they are natural rights, how they are rendered human rights, and then what the challenges that people are facing today. Okay, so there are many challenges. Though, for example, we have those covenants, those international treaties, but we are facing many challenges, and we are just seeking to solve, okay, those challenges, and find resolutions and solutions to them. Well, so I will invite you to watch this video. Can we play it, or? So please, you can take notes. Okay, we can discuss after the end of this lecture. We can discuss the content of this video. It is about the challenges that we are facing nowadays, especially concerning human rights violations all over the world. This one? Yes.
Under the supervision.
I think you should make it like this.
Under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a. The supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first,
Sound. Just pause it for now. I gave him the video so that he can broadcast it from there. But it worked yesterday.
It's on the cable list.
Oh, yes, okay, the sound, yes.
Play it again.
Yes, thank you. It's
Yeah,
fine.
play. On the cable.
Oh, yes, we need the cable of the sound. You are recording, but you cut later on, yes? You cut these things. Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay. Because it's not that equivalent. So, I think here.
Alright, it's this one.
Summary. At first, only a few lucky people had. Under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt,
কি হলো? এনেকে বললাম। একটু নতুন করে পাঠিয়ে দিলাম। সফটওয়্যার লিখবো। 손절라 mediano. Minimo fondo di
Please, because it worked. I worked with it yesterday. No, just wait, just.
Under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept
Only a
of
few
natural
lucky people
rights
had any rights.
had finally
Until
become
one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800.
The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers. Free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent. Who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
our reality, and this is something that disappoints, okay, many people all over the world. But of course, we should follow the path of those militant people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and many Mahatma Gandhi, and many other people, for example, who have influenced, of course, the process of human rights and the history of the developments of human rights. Yes, okay, so what is your opinion about this video and about all the covenants that we have talked about? Yes, can you share your comments and your views? You have the freedom of speech, the freedom to express your views, your opinions. They are very welcome. Shall I give you some time to work in groups? Yes? 5 minutes, it's enough? Okay, let's give you 5 minutes. Just write some notes about what you have noticed in this video and how can we deal with those human rights violations all over the world. Yes, can you join this group? Can you? Yes, okay, yes. No, three groups. No, three groups. Three groups. You are laughing. No, Masoud. You students over there, can you work in group? Sorry, you are not from the English department. Management department. Oh yes, sorry, because I thought you were participants. So how many? You are just you? Yeah, okay, one group. Yes, okay. Because I thought you were students or sorry. Oh my God. No, هما في committee organization. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to work with these four students or five. No problem. Yes. Yes, yes, sure.
We had two observations between the two of us.
Yes.
Firstly, Teresa here
Can
has
you
stated
approach?
that Teresa here has stated that as human beings, we should be aware of our own rights, and if we hold position of privileges, then we can also help others recognize and exercise their own rights. That was the first observation. And
Yes,
secondly, we
please.
observed that although there are international bodies and national bodies in every countries that help us recognize and exercise our rights, there seems to be some sort of discrepancy when it comes to follow-up of actions.
Yes.
Whenever there is a breach of human rights, say in a small region of some country,
Yeah.
what if we give authorities to these local bodies to uh, penalize or have the legal authority to punish whenever there has been a breach of human rights or some sort of violations. Say we have discussed on children's rights in the first session in the morning.
Yeah.
So, in India, child labor is still prevalent in certain industries, let it be agriculture or in the mining industry or in fireworks industries as well. Children are exploited, they are employed in this industry. So, there are also various commissions for children's rights protections, but they do not have the legal authority to hold people or say these corporates accountable. So if certain changes can occur where we can give these national bodies the rights, the legal authority to hold or certain mandates of corporate accountability, then maybe it would be helpful. So that was few of our observations.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, to the point. Yes.
Hello. Thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity. So I have some observation also, and I have some experience also, which I have experienced.
Yes.
So that one I want to share.
Mhm.
So the observation I have seen here, the child laborers, they're especially in the remote areas where parents, stakeholders, they are not that much aware. So in that case, now in many villages of India, there are some works, the name of the works like MG and Rega. This one scheme where all the stakeholders, all family members, they have to work. They will be given wages for daily basis for 14 days or 13 days. And there, sometime parents, they send their kids or like 10 years or 14 years. So instead of sending to schools or others, they send to their child to work there. So that is as it is natural, as it is human rights. So why these things are going on? If we think only in one context, but what about the other context? Yes, other participants also share about that in factories, in other institution or any other aspects. So which is very we have to think about that. So how it can be possible? The video is said in there. It should be start within us. So it cannot be possible within the short period of time. But we should be always expect or we should be hope that I will start from that. Then it can be possible to others. They will be seeing my behaviors, my action. They may be motivated. So in this way, it can be start from one, and then it will be ghost sending system throughout the entire world. It may be through the, it may start from the, it may be from the small things it is. The small thing can be the great hope for all of us. As in northeastern state, recent like 1 year, there has been communal like conflicts between two ethnic groups. So the name of the state is Manipur. This is next to another state. So there, I have observed so many videos from leaders of two groups. They have given their viewpoints. They are, these are. So there I have found there is some solution, but those solutions are not that much come up with that fully. So one of my friends, she is saying, my family members are not sleeping. So we used to sleep, they are always guarding us when the bomb will come to our house. So for a long time we could not sleep, we could not go to outside. So when we see these rights, this pace and paper, which is, although it is given, but how it is on ground reality, it is not working. So it can be happen only, we have seen only two groups, two ethnic groups, but on the other side, another instances we have seen Bangladesh, where there my friends also there, who have also been chased or tortured somehow or anyhow. So there also, this is big questions that how it, the rights which is documented, it is cannot work. But we can hope. So the hope is that once I also have experience in my life in the year of 2020, I was high school teacher of the private school. So there, in my state, so there is a communal rights, not in the capital of that state, my state, but in the other region. So I went to the school. So when I went to the school, so I had to cross the areas. But in my areas, there is no any other issues. So I don't know actually. So I get down at the place because of there is a policeman or horseman. So there I was chased by other community or other group. So in my experience, I have seen that as I am teacher, I am teaching to the students, you should do this, you should go for better life, you should build our nation prosperous way, you should work for the country. So when I was encountered in this situation, I felt so pathetic, I felt so and I feel that I am nothing. But at the same time, after 3 days I joined the school. So I started teaching at that school. So now I came in my mind that I can start from here. What I can start, those communities that comes the school, I will trigger those ideas so that they can think, they can share their opinions. So it is the importance of the teacher, so they can start from there. And also it can be start from the family, it can be start from friend circle, wherever you go, wherever you are. Then we can hope for those paste and paper, it is the ground reality it will work. That is my all about the reflection.
Yes,
Thank you.
It's very deep. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'll just like to share an experience of mine.
Yes, sure.
So yeah, so I was working at one of the remotest districts of Assam, that is Dhubri, which is where the rates of child marriage and school dropout rate is quite high. Like it is one of the topmost. If you count the number, then it is one of the topmost districts. So I was working with different communities, like minor communities, Adivasis and Santhalis, the ST and SCs. So there I have experienced when they have also mentioned about like human rights, about children rights, like women rights. I would like to mention that I think all these are beyond that, because if you do not have the proper livelihood, I don't think awareness works. I don't think anything works. Like I was working as the POC of of that very project, which works for students, and we had 5 centers there. And in the centers, we used to call out students who were school dropouts. We had 10 dedicated professionals who were working as teachers, and our process was to go from baseline survey, like in how many villages there were school dropouts, and maybe in how many villages girls are getting married even before the age of 15 or maybe 13. So before joining my the organization that I'm currently working in, I never imagined. I just it was for me, it was just a mere basic bookish knowledge. That I used to, like, had I just had idea that maybe these are not true. Maybe these are not even, like, this cannot be true, because someone getting married even before the age of 14, 15, it was not even possible for me. But then when I actually worked with them, when I went for surveys with their parents, their instant reaction is, if I do not have a house, if we don't even have food to eat, if we do not have a shelter, like, what is the use of even education? How am I even going to send my daughters to school? I have a son, I have a daughter. My son can work, he can maybe be the bread earner of the family, but my daughter is of no use, because one day she'll get married to someone else, and she'll look after that very particular household. She'll bear her own children. So I like they're so they're like they are not even willing to send their daughters to school. So this is one of the reasons. And about the MJ and Rega scheme, yes, it exists, but the ones who actually deserves the scheme, they don't even get the schemes. Again, I'm speaking this from experience. I have worked with the communities, as I have mentioned. We are working with the poorest of the poor sections, but the ones who actually needs it, the schemes, maybe the stakeholders, maybe the our primary stakeholders, they do not even have access to those schemes. Why? Because people do not reach out to them. Another why? Because they live in particular spaces where maybe people are not even aware about the geographical areas they live in. And like the government is like, okay, we have a data to show, we have a few people to show, which we are willing to send to the higher authorities. So they just provide the schemes to the ones who are easily available. And the landless people, they do not even get the proper scheme they need. So when it comes to human rights, like my personal experience is beyond the schemes, it is beyond the rights. I think, I don't know who, I'm not blaming anyone, I don't know, but I think the government, I at times feel the government maybe is not working on those particular schemes, or I don't know how shall I express, but someone coming from the field, working with the communities, for me, ma'am, it is quite an experience which maybe I will never be able to put into words. So that's it. But also, I believe charity begins at home. So since charity begins at home, maybe one step at a time, we can also contribute to the society. And which is why I'm still at the organization, and I would like to contribute my whatever to the people that I have worked with, that I have lived with. So thank you so much.
Yes, welcome. Okay, so thank you very much. Who would like to say something else? Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, for sharing these very important experiences. It gladdens me to hear you and to learn from your experiences, and to learn that really we are all facing those human rights violations. But you see, you have just reminded me of something which is very important. It's a quote said by again Mahatma Gandhi. It says that if you could change yourself, the tendencies in the world would also change. So you see, you have talked about change, or maybe the government should do something, maybe our families, okay, but we should start by changing ourselves. If you manage to change yourself, if you manage to be an active person in your in your society, for example, in your community, and even with your small, you have talked about something very important. We start by small things. If you are very active person and very suitable person within your family, so you can be also a good citizen within your country. So please start changing yourselves, okay? Education, you have tackled the question of education. Yes, I do believe that if you don't have that proper life, okay, if you don't have that financial, we have talked about financial, social, cultural stability. Yes, this is something very very preponderant if you would like to of course assert and advocate for the right or to education. We should feel very stable financially speaking. Yes, this is true, and I do agree with you. But at the same time, this doesn't mean that we should aspire for change, okay, for changing ourselves. This doesn't mean that we should hope for the best. This doesn't mean that we should act, okay, not just waiting for people to act on behalf of us. No, but we should act, we should react. The thing that you have done now, okay, this is something that it gladdens me really, that you have reacted, you have had this opportunity to give your opinions, to express, to share your experience. This is the first, maybe it's the first cure, it's the half cure of the issue, because when you know it, when you are aware of those human rights violations, when you have experienced them, so this is the first cure. So now many students who have talked, so I think that you are now thinking about solutions, yes, and you are raising questions. This is something very healthy. When you start raising questions, so you are on the right track. So I think you and me, so we are on the same wavelength, because this is why we are here. It's to track human rights violations, but at the same time to hope for the best, okay? So this is, I think, our noble mission in academia. Thank you very much. So I think it's the end of the lecture. You stopped the stream? Yes, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you for coming. Okay, so okay, so see you later on in the other lecture. Okay.